And I want to talk to you, I'm going to take advantage of this moment to talk to you a little bit about the idea of spiritualizing. And this is a very common thing to do in preaching. Spiritualizing is when I give meaning to things in the passage that were never in the mind of the original author. One of my first sermons when I was here at Elim, right, and I had an opportunity to go out and preach someplace. One of the first sermons I ever preached. It was about the donkey that Jesus rode into Jerusalem, right? And I took the experience of the donkey and I related it to the Christian life. For example, the donkey was tied up. And you remember Jesus sends the disciples and they go and they set the donkey free. They release him and pull him, right? And in that same way, we as believers were all bound and held by sin. But the Lord came and he released us and called us into his purposes. And then the donkey came, you remember, and they threw coats and they covered up the donkey, and Jesus sat on the donkey. And in the same way, if you want to be used by the Lord, you need to be willing to be covered up, not to be seen, so that the Lord can ride you and accomplish the purposes that he wants to accomplish. And then we remember the donkey, as he was being led with Jesus on his back, he shared in the glory of Christ, because the people are yelling, Hosanna, Hosanna, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. And they were laying down things in front of him so that he wouldn't step in the dirt and this kind of stuff. And so the donkey, because he allowed himself to Jesus to take the reins of his life, the lordship of Christ, because he allowed the Jesus to take the reins of his life, he shared in the glory of Christ. That is, he shared in the hosannas, and he shared in all the blessing and all these different things that happen there. Okay, so is it true that we were bound in sin before we came to know Christ? Right. Is it true that if you want to be used by the Lord, you got to be willing to be covered up and hidden? Right? Is it true that we need to give ourselves over to the lordship of Christ? We need to let him take the reins of our life? Yeah, it's all true. Is it true that we share in the glory of Christ? That is, that if we allow ourselves to be used by him, that we will actually share in the blessing that happens? Yeah, it's all true. It's all true, but none of it is in that passage. What I mean by that is I gave meanings to the passage that were never intended by the original author. Now, I took a passage that was the passage of this story of this donkey that is filled with some tremendous meaning. But I began giving this passage meaning, or creating meaning in the passage that was never intended by the original author, you see. I was spiritualizing. Now, you have heard a lot of sermons like this over your lifetime, where people have, let me tell you some of the problems with this approach. One of the big difficulties with this approach. The person in your congregation starts to feel hopeless. Matter of fact, many times people in congregations where this is done, they stop reading the Bible. Because they read the Bible and they say to themselves, they listen to the guy preach and they look at the passage and they say to themselves, I could have read that 5,000 times and I would never have thought the donkey was like a person. You know what I mean? I would never have thought the donkey was an image of the Christian. I would never have thought that. So what's the point of me even reading this book? Because obviously it's a secret code. It must have, they must give you go to Bible school and you get a code book, right? That say, donkeys aren't donkeys. Donkeys are people. Donkeys they have other meanings, in things. Water is not water. Water is something else. This is something, pomegranates are not pomegranates. No, you thought pomegranate was a fruit. No, pomegranate actually is, And so we get this, and so people look and they just say to themselves, I don't have the code book. And I can't go to school, I can't go to Bible school. So I might as well not even bother reading the Bible anymore. Why bother reading it? Because it makes no sense just from your normal reading. You have to understand the code. You have to understand the secret meanings behind things. See, when the truth is, there's no code, there's no secret meanings, that the plain truth of the passage is much more powerful than any created idea I might come up with. For example, think of the prophetic nature of the story of the donkey. Think of Jesus tells them, right? All that tells us about God's knowledge of situations. He tells them, go to such and such a place at such and such a time. You're going to see this there. Go up to this donkey. Take the donkey. If somebody tries to stop you, tell them the master has need of it. And then bring me the donkey, right? Now, you think about that, just that image right now. Think of the courage that was required of the disciples, right? What would happen if I said to Michael back there, I said, Michael, look, this is what I want you to do. I want you to go to the Marketplace Mall, the shopping center. I want you to go to the Penny's parking lot. Out at the outer edge of the Penny's parking lot, there will be a green car sitting. I want you to go to that green car, open the door. Under the mat, there's going to be keys. I want you to take the car and bring it to me. And if somebody tries to stop you, tell them Pastor Mike has need of it. Okay, now let your imagination go just a little bit. Okay, so Michael's in the parking lot of the Penny's, right? The store. And he's looking around. Sure enough, there's a green car. Is that the car or is that not the car? Is that the one I'm supposed to get or isn't it the one I'm supposed to? Is there another green car? I don't see, there seem to be some other cars with different, but that one's a little further out than all the rest. He said it would be far out. Okay, I'm just going to casually walk toward that car. Let's see what happens. I'm walking toward that car. As I'm walking toward the car, I see somebody else coming across the parking lot going toward that same area as I'm walking toward that area. And I'm thinking, what if it's their car? What if I'm going and I'm going to open the door on their car, and here they are, and so Michael pauses a little bit, and he waits for a second, and nope, they went to another car. Here's the click of their little button as the door opens, and so he keeps walking again, and he's walking, and it's these other people coming out of the store behind him, and they're walking the same path that he just walked, and they're coming behind him, and he's wondering, are they going for that car? They're coming, and he walks out. Well, finally he gets to the car, and he leans over, and he pops it open. Sure enough, the door is open, right? And he's waiting for the alarm to go off. No alarm goes off. He sits down inside. He's about to reach for the keys under the mat. He's getting ready to, all once he hears somebody say, hey, what are you doing? What's going on inside of Mike? Right, his heart is probably 500 times a second. He's looking around, are they talking to me? Are they talking to somebody else? What's happening? And reaches down, grabs the keys, and looks up, and they weren't talking to him. And he puts the keys in the car and starts it and drives it away. Is somebody going to come screaming out, yelling at him? You see what I'm saying? All these things. Now think of the faith. First, the prophetic nature of what Jesus did by telling him where to go and what to do, another moment, another time, right? And then the courage on the part of the disciples, right? In actually stepping into what Jesus said, even though, what would happen, all the feelings and all the emotion, everything that would go on. Well, the problem was, when I taught that passage, you didn't learn about any of that. You didn't learn about anything that was really in the passage. You just learned about my spiritualization of the passage, where I gave meanings to things that were never really there. Can you see that even though the things that I said were good and biblical in the sense of that there would be so much more power if I was actually saying what the passage said rather than what I wanted to say, you see, in what was being communicated, what was happening there.